All right, let's see. Oh, just hit the live button. Hopefully we're working here. I see comments coming in. I see Randizzle became a member. Thanks for becoming a member on our channel here, Dizzle. I appreciate you, friend.
Dude, I've been trying to do it for forever now.
He just started following me and just became a member. The hell kind of baloney is
just
this?
unsubscribed from him.
Get with it.
Unsubscribed and reported twice.
That's all right. Okay, looks like we're having people. I see numbers. I see all kinds of comments. I am way behind.
Hey, there I am.
Hey, there's shit, and there's Dizzle. Okay, so what's happening, Feeshin friends? Welcome to another live. This was kind of a kind of hat in the air craziness. So we were supposed to have the folks from Third Eye Fishing on, and we're going to jump over and look at their site because they're good people. They had a conflict. Unfortunately, they're not able to jump on tonight. But I was talking to my guy, Philip. Actually, you all have heard of Philip. Philip has sponsored a couple of videos of mine. I was just telling Shan because Philip got to meet Shan, which is funny. And I was like, oh, they went fishing together. And I'm like, yeah, Philip's a damn good dude. Philip was like, hey, you should see if Shan wants to come on. So if y'all remember Shan, the aquatic biologist on Instagram, joining us. If you haven't followed him on there, go follow him. He's a fisheries biologist, aquatic biologist, whatever you want to call it. What's your formal title when you go into a place to say, I can manage this pond? What's the cool formal title you give them to impress them?
I usually just pick up a lot of trash, so I guess janitor or garbage remover.
Hey, good on you, dude.
Algae sprayer. There's a lot of that.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Glamorous, man.
I still don't have it. I need to get a whiteboard here. I said I was going to do it. People donated one time to do it. I need to do that. I'm going to sideline that because we've got a couple places here, Shan, that were sprayed. And I want to pick your brain on that, Randy. Randy and I have talked about it and kind of see what happens when they do that.
Yeah, that when you're fishing that real chemically, there's plenty of videos where I've pulled something off my lure and been like, Debo, smell this. And he's always declined, but it's that really, I don't even know how to describe that chemically smell. It's just, what is that?
I think that's just the vegetation, though. We'll get more into that. I don't think that's the smell of the stuff because it smelled like that before they sprayed it. Whatever that stuff is, that skunk weed, and not the type of skunk weed probably everybody's thinking. This is a different type of a skunk weed. But yeah, smell my finger, Chris Russ says. Yeah, you know how many times Randy has asked me to smell his finger, and I still will not ever do it. And you should never do that. If a friend asks you to smell their finger, don't do it. Okay, so I don't even know where we're going tonight. Tonight's going to be an open book. Oh, what I was going to say was Philip was like, you should have Shan on. I just got to fish with him. Awesome guy. I'm like, I'd rather be prepared. He's an aquatic biologist. He's a fisheries biologist. Shan hits me up. He's like, hey, you need somebody to hop on? I'm like, yes. So here we are, Dizzle, Shan, and I. We're going to I put the title as this or that questions. But since we have Shan on, if you have any sort of, it's kind of tough. Like we were just talking before, Shan does a lot of the private water type stuff. And if you remember when we talked the first time, stocking ponds, helping people. So, like if I moved into a big house, I dug a 5-acre pond, I could bring Shan in. That's what he does. And say, Shan, help me manage this pond. And kind of what's that look like from your end? Like when somebody brings you in to do that, do you have is it like a 1-year plan or how does that go? Explain kind of your job in a nutshell, if you can.
Sure. It's pretty easy. I mean, it's not super hard once you learn how to do it. I think it's like any other trade, like if you were an electrician or a plumber, you have to understand some things, and in this scenario, you have to understand the biology of the fish that you're dealing with.
One thing I was going to jump in, I'm going to interrupt you. I was thinking this just before I hopped on. Do you have different guys that do it different ways? Is it kind of like trades and other stuff where like some guys might kind of do it this way? Do you see that where some people kind of butt heads in your industry?
And a lot of times too, like when you get into that, you'll get guys who kind of describe doing the same thing a little bit different way, In ponds, it's pretty straightforward. They're not that complex, they're small bodies of water. So just to dive right in, where most people make their mistake is putting too many different species in there. If you would just stay with like bass and bluegill, a real simple system like that, the bluegill provide the forage for the bass, and the bass control the bluegill numbers. They coexist well together. Bluegill actually spawn a lot, and they're really cold tolerant, so you can stock them anywhere in the country, and they're really good forage for ponds, and you can feed them. So, that's even better. But when you start adding, and this is where people get really confused, like if you add, say, the smaller the pond, the more it seems to affect it, But when you start adding a lot of different species of fish to the pond, it's not benefiting the pond. It's actually negatively impacting the pond.
And I think we talked about last time, like the biomass, right? So a certain body of water can only hold so much stuff. So if you pump it full of 20 different things, the thing that you want to catch most or that you want to grow the most can't do that because there's all this other stuff, growing and stuff that either conflicts with this or doesn't help that bass grow, right?
If you think about it like a pie chart is probably the easiest way. And it would look like Pac-Man, where your bass is the mouth part that's cut out, and the rest of the yellow part of the Pac-Man is like bluegill. It's not quite that. It's not quite like that much weight-wise. It's a little bit more than that, but it's real close to that, And if your pie chart starts to open up, and your bass population starts to get larger, so that mouth begins to open like that. Instead of looking like Pac-Man, it starts to look like a half. Like if it's in half, the bass aren't growing. So you can put bass back into a situation like that, and they won't grow. They'll be like 8 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches long their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
There's only enough forage there to sustain them. There's not enough forage there to help them grow. And that's a real common problem.
So of the little part of the black part of the Pac-Man mouth, like that's even broken down further between bigs, dinks, and everything in between, right?
Yes. So then when you like say just take in a simple pond system, like and when I say ponds, I'm probably I'm talking less than like 40 acres of water, roughly somewhere in there. I can't even remember the exact number, but we'll just 40, 50 acres, it breaks, and you can call that a lake, and everything else.
Sure.
When I say pond, I'm talking about a smaller body of water, and then lake would be a larger, and there's a difference, so if we start talking about ponds, we start talking about, like I just said, crappie really negatively affect ponds. Well, somebody's immediately going to get up in arms, and they're going to be like, well, I've got this place that I fish, but it's like 700 acres. That's not a pond.
That's a lake.
So we have to differentiate, very similar. Like, we can't talk about managing a river the same way we talk about managing a pond or managing a reservoir, right? So you have to differentiate the bodies of water where they are. But there's still general tendencies that apply to all of them as well, and I think that's what I'm good at. I'm good at describing kind of how to get around, how to understand the dynamics there.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I know I don't know that I've talked to you a ton on it, Randy, but I know I've talked to other people who have hit me up after that live. Obviously Philip and a couple other people that talk about, I have noticed now places where I see northern, in these smaller lakes, northern and crappie, the bass just aren't generally as big. And I know obviously it's going to kind of depend on where, here in Iowa, we don't have, we're not known for giants. I think our state record is like 10.5 pounds, something like that, which is, a cakewalk in Texas, Real quick, I want to shout out Big Packs, $1.99. Thank you for the donation, brother. And he said, got a 6-pounder today on a crawl. Awesome, dude. Congrats to you. That's a tank. I would take 6-pounders anytime. Actually, didn't even catch all last year. Didn't even catch a 6-pounder. Bunch of 5s.
I've never caught a 6-pounder in my life.
Never caught a 6. Good old Iowa. And also, let's see. I'm way behind on comments
Army
already.
Outdoors.
Yep, I'm going to get Army Outdoors. Thank you, Randy. He was catching some fish today. Actually, was just talking to him before. Ralph, if I can find you. Eliza said, Eliza's in the house. Eliza, always watching, said, by the way, I'd let everyone here smell my finger. Thank you, Eliza. We appreciate you. Michael in the house. Chris, another Iowa boy. Ronald. Dizzle. Actually, funny enough, just followed and just became a member. Randy, thanks for finally doing that.
But again,
Ron.
I reported you and unsubscribed, so
donated and then unsubscribed. Ron, I am a huge Kistler fan. I finally got my hands on some of their stuff a couple years ago. Which one did you get, dude? I do like the Kistler rods. Shane, do you have a certain brand that you kind of gravitate toward?
As far as what?
Like rods and reels at all?
Rods. Well, I've been doing a lot of testing with the rods the last couple years. I kind of got married to a few for a while, you know, and then I decided to get a divorce. So far, like I just picked up, it's a Dobbins blank at Buka's at the Bullshad shop.
Shop. I saw you were there. We need to talk about that. Yeah. So what did you think? What was the coolest part of going there and meeting all them?
Man, I got to meet the guys from Tactical Bassin while I was there.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. You said they were legit.
Were really cool guys, man. Just as genuine as they seem, you know.
That's
had
cool.
a good conversation with them, and I was on a podcast a long time ago, and the first guy that like ever contacted me, like I just you know we have a talk, and then people listen, and then some guy picks up something in the talk, and he goes out and he catches his personal best the next day. And his name was John, and I got to meet John and his son. He's been following me for a few years now.
That's cool.
They came over, and that was cool too. So it was just real good, man. Going fishing with Mike next week, as a matter of fact.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you guys catch some toads.
Oh, check this out. Speaking of that, look at this thing, man.
Dang, the big dog. What is that, 10-inch?
Look at this. This is the 11. It's the biggest one he made.
Go full screen, Debo.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Randy. So Ralph, Army Outdoors, became a member. Ralph, I'm going to drop you down here, but thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Shan with the biggin. Good Lord.
Stupid amount of lure, man. This thing weighs 0.58 pounds.
So that's what, 8 ounces? 9 ounces?
10, I think. I'm not sure, man. It's
8 ounces is half a pound,
it
right?
in pounds, you know. So
wow. Yeah, when you're weighing them in pounds. you know it's getting big.
Well, I've got an idea. Me and my buddy Mickey were talking about that, and it's a pretty heavy. You know, it's kind of it's definitely a bait that I'm going to throw. I mean, it matches their gizzard shad population really well here. I'm confident in the lure. It's just so heavy. I'm actually going to try trolling it parallel to the bank. See, we've got these total electric lakes here. We're not allowed to even have a gas motor.
Yep, we have a bunch of those here too.
Trolling's not really something that you see guys doing a whole lot of. They usually just motor across and anchor or spot lock, whatever. So I think I'm going to throw that thing on a planer board and troll it parallel the bank and troll it, you know, and see what happens.
Going musky style on them.
Yeah, a little bit of that, you know. Just a little action.
What were those guys doing today, Debo?
Now?
They were fishing for crappie today, right? Those
oh, good Lord.
Yeah, we were seeing, and they had
saw some folks.
Is it a spider rig? Is that what they call it? Or octopus rig?
I don't know what just a bunch of poles off the back and like the holders.
Yeah, so they had like what,
I think they might have been looking for wallies too. But Jesse Raymaker brought up a good point. He said, "Sorry, bud." So I think he's talking about when we were talking about Kistler. Should try a Cashin rod. Feels similar, $100 cheaper. Cashin does make some really good stuff. I was actually using their jerkbait rod today. Very good company. And the one thing I will say about Kistler is they're good about running deals. So don't necessarily jump on unless you need a rod. I guess buy one. But they're good about running deals. Wait, like they just had a buy one get one free on the KLX or the Helium, which those are $300 and $400 rods. That's a lot, right? But if you get two for $300, that's $150 a rod, you know. So
that's not.
I try to always wait.
I paid $200 for the one at Mike's shop, and I tell you what, man, I've only fished it a couple of days, but it feels really good. It handles up to 8-ounce lures. It's 8.3. It's a nice blank. It's got nice break to it.
I've seen
not
that
only
one.
landed a couple small fish, but it's nice, man.
What is that like? Is it off the Champion blank? Did he say?
He didn't say, but I'll find out.
That would be a good question
I'm not sure.
I would guess it is. So Hellabass, here's another shout out to another good YouTuber. Rich Hellabass. I actually hit him up before. As soon as Third Eye declined, Rich had actually just sent me a message. I replied to him and said, hey, you want to hop on? He said, no, I'm getting ready for a tournament tomorrow. But everybody go check out Rich's last live. He actually had Gary Dobbins on and they talked everything about rods. And Gary seems as legit as they come. I would like to meet him and I might have to talk to Rich to see if we can get him on. I don't know what else I could talk to him about because Rich completely picked his brain on everything. But go check that out. He was as honest as they come and seemed like a really good guy. I like Dobbins rods too. I think he said his favorite was the Champion, which is the $200 rod. And he's like, I fish 90% the Champions. He's like, I could use the, $300-$400 rods. I forget what they're called. Ecstasy and something else. But he's like, I like the Champion. It's the best.
Yeah,
best
man.
I
haven't fished with any of those rods yet. Now, another rod that I got 2 of them actually. One of them was another kind of a swim bait action rod, but it's a Daiwa rod. But it's like a blended rod, it's not pure graphite. I can't remember if it's carbon fiber or
carbon and glass.
Something else. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it's made out of, but that Daiwa rod is a real interesting rod and takes quite a lot of weight as well. And then the other one was the Shimano, and it's also a blended rod. The Zodius, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah,
Zodius.
That's a pretty nice. That's a lighter. But I got like the jig rod in that. Just it's a real stiff action, and I like it. It's a good rod.
I've got I don't have a Zodius yet. I was talking to a couple people about the Zodius. I've got a number of Shimano rods. I haven't gone to the real high price stuff. I got one of the X Prides on sale, which is like 200-ish bucks. I think they're coming out with a new X Pride. Really good rod. I think the Zodius is like right at 200 bucks. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot if you're looking to step up. I think the $100 region is like the best bang for the buck. But I think like once you step up to that, $200-ish point, I kind of think that's what Gary Dobbins kind of put the exclamation point too on when he's saying as a tournament guy, which I didn't freaking know this. I about crap my pants. You know how many boats that guy has won in his career? And to his defense, he said, listen, back in the old days when I was doing tournaments, boats were more common. He's like, boats were a first place thing and they give you a little bit of cash. You know how many boats Gary Dobbins has won?
No idea.
40 boats.
Wow.
He's won 40 different boats over his career. I about crapped when he said it.
That's
He's
ridiculous.
like,
Boats.
Yeah, but he like this is the other thing that people could hang that on a pedestal and be like, I'm a BA, dude. But he's like, in my defense, like back in the day, yeah, BA Baracus. And in my day, it was easier to fish. He's like, guys didn't have the electronics and stuff now like they do now. He's like, it's a different game. He's like, I was a bank guy. I was beating the bank. I was, trying to do stuff a little bit different. He was just very honest about it. So it was really cool. I don't know. Maybe he's a jerk in real life. I don't know. But he seemed cool as hell on the show. But when he said I've won 40 boats, and it was just like nonchalant, like, it's like,
I
it's
don't
not
know him, but I do know Mike, and Mike's real cool, and they're hooked up together. So I'd expect he's probably a pretty cool guy.
What else did you get to go see? I know you probably saw Jen there, who does all the painting.
Yes, love
she
Jen,
does
man.
freaking
She is incredible,
amazing
artist.
work.
Amazing. I mean, just like it's worth it just to go see it. We were talking about that, how they're able to blend something so functional with art,
Mm-hmm.
and make that into something. I love that place, man. It's great.
Let's see what else. If you guys see any questions, feel free to jump in. I am at 7:40, so I am way behind. I'm trying to get caught up here. Jump in. There's no sort of
just a bunch of smart aleck comments.
Well,
so I was gonna hold
that.
I was gonna hold it up here. So G-Fan, I've got part of your unboxing coming up. G-Fan is a good supporter of the channel. Sent me some cool JDM stuff. But he says if Dizzle gets 500 subs, he's already at 250. His first video will feature him in a kilt. Yeah, everybody, I linked Dizzle's channel below. We're gonna try to get him to as many subs as we can without even dropping a video yet. The funny thing is, this guy's got like a year's worth of footage on his computer, and I still haven't goaded him into doing a.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Come on, Randall, get on it.
Man, you guys are gonna have to come down to Georgia. You can catch some fish down here.
Brother, I would love to come fish with you if I could get away more with work. I would love to. One day we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Yeah,
me,
I've got
you,
a lot
Philip,
of things
all
going
meet
on
up
right now, man, and I'll have a lot of water to fish here over the next couple of years. I have a lot of stuff coming, because I kind of cut off the stuff that I just didn't want to do, anymore. That I'm just treading water on, and I just really want to work on new stuff and stuff that's like kind of experimental. Doing some stuff with Floridas and just different genetics, I guess.
And that's kind of like, I suppose that kind of works in your favor because you almost have to build, like, since these are all private people, I assume you're kind of your own marketing guy and you're kind of building your own like portfolio. Would that be accurate?
Really kind of what my idea was twofold on the aquatic biologist page. I read an article about being an influencer in like Forbes or something, killing time at the airport. And in the process of reading the 10 steps to be an influencer, which I didn't even know what the word meant, I'm old. So,
right.
It just,
same boat.
It just, I just thought, I could do that with ponds, because this portion of ponds, like I said, we control trash, water testing, those types of things people pay for. They line item the fisheries work. A lot of your lakes, you don't even manage fisheries on, So this is the most interesting part of my job, but you can literally not even do it and still have a lake management business, just do everything else but this.
Mm-hmm.
It literally, like, it won't make or break you either way, And
so, like,
for me, it was just what I like to do. So I just took every opportunity that I could on every single pond that I had and assessed the fish population and tried to help it,
But that's what I mean. So, like, because I'm assuming people pay you to manage the places, right? So, like, how do they find you?
But the problem you run into there is the guys who have the money to pay you are generally the guys who don't listen very well. So you kind of just end up doing what they want instead of what you want.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Clint, though, I mean, I ran into him here and I've been going to his pond. We've been going, live on it for about a year now. And I've got free reign in there. So it's good. It's going to turn into a very interesting project. I have a few going. And actually, one thing that's very interesting, I just talked to one of the guys that follows me. He goes by Fuel Can online. Aaron is his first name. He's a geneticist from Auburn's fishery school. And after, like, starting in the fall, I'll have the capability and have access to all female only bass populations. They're going to have developed a blood test that allows you to, like, take it when the fish is very small and know whether it's going to become male or female, so we can stock all females. Now, can you think of the advantages that would give you?
So, okay, that leads me to another question. So I've got two parking lot questions: the stinky green stuff and treating it with herbicides or whatever they call them in the aquatic stuff.
Okay.
And then two, is there a way for the regular angler to pick out a male versus female bass, like an easy way, or no?
Yeah,
because I've heard lots of theories.
Springtime. Yeah.
Okay. So advantages to picking only females. Well, I would assume like your ratio, right? Because I would think it would be like any sort of breeding ground, like cattle here in Iowa obviously are bigger. You'd want a much bigger ratio of females to males because males can mate with multiple females and you can get more babies and bigger females, right? I don't know.
You're along the right track. It's just fish are a little weird, Female bass actually spawn in multiple nests. So
really?
Yeah, they don't all just dump their eggs once. Actually, they can spawn over a few weeks, and I guarantee this season is one of those seasons where they've been spawning off and on for a while.
I did not know that. That's interesting. Yeah. So the beds that the males go up and make, the female can mate with multiple males and drop in different spots, and then be off.
The big dominant females always do too.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Sure do.
Well, I just learned something. I thought it was a one and done deal. They drop them, go back out, and
No.
Wow.
They
Okay.
spawned. I don't know. I mean, I don't know for how many days, a few days, you know. And like if they're in the middle of spawning for that like 3 or 4 days or whatever it is, and it gets cold, they could just pull back and the eggs are fine, you know, they just go kind of dormant, and then when the water comes back around and they, you know, whatever happens that triggers them, they just go right back to it.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's usually not too much problem with bass spawning. If you're not having successful bass reproduction, it's usually due to another fish eating those bass.
Okay.
So real quick, Debo, just to kind of go back to what you were kind of talking about. I was trying to look it up. I can't find anything ever. The difference between a male and a female. I always thought that the female had more of like a rounded mouth versus a male had more of like a triangular mouth.
Well, hold on. Let's park that question. I'm gonna grab this question since I've had it up from Nick. Nick, also a good friend of the channel. Love you, brother. We were actually just talking before. But he said, so let's pick brains on real quick. What's your go-to heavy flipping / punching setup? Because I saw a bunch of questions about asking if Shan was fishing for whales with that bait and other stuff. And I don't know, Shan, you know, you being down there, do you do much punching or, you know, flipping like the real heavy stuff in those ponds or no?
Well, you know, that's part of it too. I've tried to manage my ponds to not have any vegetation in them.
That makes sense.
Because I push them. And by push them, I mean, okay, so here in Georgia, we will just naturally hold low productivity. We have low limestone. We have poor water quality, generally speaking, acidic soil. That's why the pine trees grow so well here.
It's pretty dirty, generally.
No, very clean, clear water.
Oh, so it's the opposite.
Clay,
okay, with the limestone.
Yeah, clay, like literally like barren desert. There's not very many fish per acre, and we can hold 100 pounds of fish per acre on average in Georgia. Some in North Georgia a little less, some in South Georgia a little bit more. But if you're not doing anything to it, that's the biomass that the lake will hold. Now, so what I do around here, since I know around here I'm around 100 pounds of fish per acre, I can kind of rev the motor and take it to about 300 or 400, about to call it 350 pounds.
Which means you don't have the other stuff choking it up.
Yeah. So what I do is I just I use a product called Mossy Oak Perfect Pond Plus. It's a micronutrient, like a fertilizer. It's a powder, water soluble powder, and you add it to the water. It dissolves on contact, and you're feeding plankton. You essentially become a plankton farmer. And by boosting the plankton, you do two things. You boost everything in the food chain. That's the beneficial plant in the pond is the plankton.
Because the little guys, all the fry and stuff, the little guys that are growing need that plankton.
Everything from there goes up. And also, too, that plankton then becomes very dense, kind of like a dark green kind of a color. And that reduces light penetration. So that stops plants from growing in the pond anyway.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so now my pond can hold like 350 pounds of fish per acre instead of 100. Oops.
Ah!
Crashing.
He said, "To hell with DEBO'S fishing and through us."
Sorry, man.
Oh, that's all good. Okay, so you probably do. Oh, our shit's falling apart. I just lost an earbud. That's what happens when you have cauliflower ear. I can't keep these damn things in. Are we here? Okay, there we go.
Yep. Wait.
Okay, so that makes sense. You're not using. Can you not hear me?
No, I'm messing with you. I can hear you just fine.
Oh, I hate you. Okay, so you're probably just, you know, kind of your standard flipping and pitching, like.
Yeah, for me, I use jigs. I drag jigs quite a bit.
Like what, half-ounce jigs?
What substituted my jig fishing? I haven't been fishing them very often because those G-Crack guys gave me so many Bellows gills 5.8s. I've been fishing those things a lot. As like it's a very similar to a jig bite. I mean, I'm fishing on a big swim bait hook anyway, so it's a big single hook, you know, item, which I prefer on
like a Texas rig. Weighted or just flipping it?
If you just put that big 5.8 on an 8/0 owner flashy swimmer. So I got a little blade under it too.
A little belly weight. Okay.
Yeah, make a little belly weight, so it gives it nice fall. And with that, it's a flat bait like your hand, but it's hooked with the belly weight this way, so it gives it unique fall. And I get a lot of bites on the fall.
That makes sense. Yeah,
so
those
I'll
things are
flip
nice.
it vertical a lot. I'll pitch that in holes a lot, and I don't necessarily punch with it because, again, I'm not really fishing places that has that much weeds.
Right.
But yeah, I've done a lot of good with that big bellows gill, and just, any kind of way you fish it like a fluke, you drag it on the bottom like a jig, you swim slow roll it like a spinner bait. It's real versatile. Good bait for like a kayak. If you don't have a lot of room.
Yeah.
Dedicated rod to it. And it's a very versatile bait. So, and the 3/8
they're cool
too.
baits.
Go down to the 3/8 with the with like the 5/0. And I get a lot of guys from up north just saying they're knocking the smallmouth in the head with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Nick, I would say, I don't know, Nick, you've already got flipping and pitching rigs. For everybody else, if you're looking for one, I would say like a heavy rod up to 1.5 ounces is a great place to start for like kind of a little bit thicker cover, heavy rod. If you don't fish a lot of, so like Shan's saying, if you're not fishing a place that has a bunch of cover, you can get away with a medium heavy, flipping, a 1/2 ounce jig on a medium heavy. If you don't have a heavy rod, always remember, I can go out and catch a fish on 3-pound line if there's nothing in my way, right? But it's once you start adding in wood, rock, really thick vegetation, that's where you're going to need a heavier rod and heavier line. So just kind of keep that in mind for the places that you're fishing. Just because you see a pro, fishing a rod up to 2 ounces and really thick lily pads, if you don't have thick pads and it's just kind of sparse cover, don't feel bad. You can get away with a medium heavy. So I am way behind on comments tonight. We are rolling. Kuda and Jig Squad in here. What's up, Kuda?
One thing I thought was pretty interesting is David Galloway 802 asked about invasive species, talking about like carp and things like that. And I brought up the yellow bass. I know yellow bass are terrible. They've like taken out how many, like 2 or 3 different lakes around us where they've had to like totally drain them, take everything out and redo them.
Yeah.
And that's just from, guys coming in with their meaners and, doing their own thing,
dumping their manner. Yeah, they're managing their own places because they have no experience, but they know that if they stock shad and yellow bass in these, it'll be awesome for ice fishing.
Yeah.
Come on.
We have the same problems, except the guys are throwing around spotted bass and flathead catfish.
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna get into a few this. Whoops, go ahead, Randy. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, do you guys have much with the Asian carp? Do you run into those too much down there, or the flying carp they call them?
A lot of times, some things get confused. We have a carp that we use here in Georgia. It's an Asian carp, a white amur. I can't ever say that right. AMUR, amur, something like that. I don't know. That's a grass carp, and they're sterile.
The golden
my
carp.
My friend Brian down at Owen Williams Fish Hatchery, he actually produces all the grass carp for the East Coast.
Wow.
So,
damn, I didn't know they're sterile. Is that all?
I got it recorded, but I deleted it accidentally, so I have to go back down there. So they take the eggs and they put them into they fertilize the carp eggs artificially, and they put them into this like incubator thing that pressurizes the eggs a certain amount, and that changes a chromosome in the egg so the fish can't spawn.
That's crazy.
So they're called triploid grass carp, and triploid has to do with the diploid is one that can spawn, triploid is one that cannot. So
this is like a dromedary versus I'm sorry, bad joke. Anyway, what is it? Dromedary. There's a 1 hump versus a 2 hump camel. Never mind. Bad joke. Go ahead, Shan. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, man. So we stock those Asian carp here in Georgia to help us control weeds. But there's a different Asian carp, and that's the one that jumps, and the silver carp, or there's a couple different varieties, I think. And we don't have too many of those around here yet. We do have common carp, with the they have 2 barbels in the corner of their mouth. It's kind of a yellow, deep-bodied fish with a not a sucker, you know, a common carp.
But again, they're fine, like, right? If you don't have too many, they're just the grass-eating carp, right?
Well,
or is that a
the
different
grass
one?
carp are...
Because that's what we have around here is a ton of grass carp, like the golden, like big scale.
Are
Those
those
are
the
probably
big
common
ones,
carp.
Debo?
Yeah, the big dogs that not the ones we saw at that one lake. Those were like the bad carp, those silver ones. But like the big
Oh,
grass
those
carp,
were.
I'll show you. Make sure we're right. Unless I'm misinformed on this. We better ask Shane here.
Well,
But
Yeah,
I'm
because
pretty sure.
it depends on if they're grass carp or common carp. If they're common carp, they're tying up biomass on you.
No, just regular grass carp. The big gold ones with the big deals on them.
Yeah, we get the huge ones that are like freaking. You cast something over the top of them, and it looks like, I don't know, you threw a 6,000-pound boulder into the
Yeah.
water when they take off.
Yeah, those sound like grass carp. Grass carp do that.
So these are the ones that we have.
Share your screen.
Yep, I'm got to figure out how to do. I got to go back.
I don't know. No idea.
Grass carp won't have barbels in the corner of their mouths, and they'll be like a torpedo shape.
Yes,
Common
yeah, that's what
carp-
I've heard as well. Have
Common
the
carp will have
catfish
two
things.
little barbels, like a quarter of an inch long. Each corner of the mouth look like catfish whiskers.
Yes,
And they're deep. They're usually like the color of butter, and they're not torpedo shaped. They're like kind of deeper body.
These are the ones we find their skulls once in a while, and these skulls are like big, huge triangle.
You're like, oh, what is that? A deer? No, it's a fish. Just massive.
Which one do I need? This one. There we go. So these are what we have here: the big golden scaled, huge scaled, torpedo looking gold carp.
Gold carp, huh?
Yeah. So these are what I've always heard of as grass carp. They don't have the things on them.
They look like
they
grass
don't have the
carp.
whiskers. Yeah, this is what I've always heard.
What's their
I don't know
Latin
what
name?
this thing calls them. Hell, I don't know. I don't even know how I got here.
Man.
That's all right. Compared to now, I know what you're talking about because so they have the big bullet head. Whoops, and I think I stopped.
Yeah, that's
sharing.
a grass carp.
Yeah. Versus, let me show you, which is like what I call a common carp. And just make sure we're on the same page here. But yes, the same thing. They have like the catfish whiskers. Let me go to images real quick. Like these guys. Complete difference. They grow fatter, I would say, like than longer, usually.
Sure.
Yep. So Bing images. Sorry, guys. This is taking so long. So this is what I would call a common carp, where you pull them up and they have these, whoops.
Oh, yeah.
They have these deals here. Complete different, because I've snagged these.
Mm-hmm.
Way different from the grass
that's
carp.
A common carp.
Yes.
See,
okay.
Two barbel, that's a big one too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they usually grow fatter. They don't grow as long. Like the grass carp we have here will get like ginormously long, but not like fat that we see.
Yeah. Now the difference is like the grass carp just eat plants. That carp eats everything it can siphon in there.
Yes.
So it competes. So for every one of those fish, like okay, if we go back to our example, we have 100 pounds of fish breaker in Georgia. 2 of those carp right there weigh how much?
Yeah, what?
20 pounds?
20 pounds?
20% of the lake right there in 2 fish.
Yep.
So that's how biomass works. You know, you can't have as many fish in the water as you want. And that's where people make mistakes on when we were talking earlier on their ponds. It's better just to stock them simple, you know, with just the game fish that you want in the proper ratio. And keep it simple, and it'll fish a lot better, a lot longer.
Ocean State, I've had this up here for a minute. We're all going to answer this. So Shannon, the this or that's. We don't read into it too much. We all have to answer those. Some of these are tough, but we all have to give the answer. So never catch another frogfish. I don't know if you frogfish much. I don't know if I've seen you post a lot of pictures of that, but never catch another frogfish ever again. Or, and this is kind of aimed at me, never buy or get to use a lure with purple in it. I'm a big fan of the old school Tequila Sunrise, which has purple in it. I would have to ditch purple. I would literally get rid of everything else that I had and only frogfish if I could. How about you guys? I don't know if you use purple much, Shan. I already know Randy's answer.
I'm getting rid of frogs 100%. I mean, I can fish anything topwater if I want to just reel it in fast enough, you know.
Yeah, I'm with Randy, man. Ditch the frog. I don't even fish topwater that much. I should.
Shan.
I should expand
Hold
my
on,
horizons.
let me mute Shan here, because now that he just said that, I don't care about everything else that he says.
I don't, man. Now, you know one topwater lure that I really do like, though? Have you seen that mega bass thing with the wings on it?
The bat?
Oh, I think somebody sent me one. So actually, when I was out
Hong Kong
with
Fooey, but it's not what it's called.
Big Trouble in Little China. I just watched that movie the other night.
Chinatown.
It's a winged metal.
It's the
wing.
eye wing.
The
eye wing
there
you call
go.
it.
That's
yeah.
It. That thing is awesome. Love it. Love
so
fishing.
I've caught
some nice fish on it too.
I was talking to a guy here locally. I ran into a dude, and have you ever seen the oh shoot, now I'm not gonna remember it. It's the smaller one. Somebody in chat will know it, Randy. If you're looking,
Jackal
I don't want to jump.
Makes one.
Yeah.
Pompadour.
What do you see?
Pompadour. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I've caught a few night fish on that bait. It's good bait.
That's exactly what he was saying. Yeah, he was fishing just after dark, and he caught supposedly an 8 on one of the places that I fish, and I'm very skeptical of that. But the book by the dude that caught all those big fish, I forget his name, but he talked about night fishing and how you can always catch the bigger fish at night. He was big on that.
Yeah, man. Night fishing is a good idea, and hanging around an hour or two after dark is a good idea.
I've heard that, and he was a big proponent of that as well. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I do night fishing, like when we're out. It's just so hard to film night fishing. Like it's worthless unless you have a bunch of lights and stuff. So it's like
it's so much fun though. Just like it's like a horror movie that you're like living in real life. You're just like casting, and like if it's a buzz bait, if it's a topwater, if it's really anything like that, and just an explosion is so much better at night.
All your other senses are out. Like it goes back to the old days. Talk about old baits that are similar to that. The jitterbug. The jitterbug was a single bladed, and we used to throw that. I've told this story before, but one of my buddy's grandpas owned a huge cattle ranch, like 150 acres, not all cattle, but farmland, and had a big cattle place. And we'd take the 4-wheelers out and camp out over there. And at night, after the sun would go down, or as it was just going down, we'd throw the jitterbug on that pond and just get smashed. And you could barely see it. And after it started getting dark, you couldn't even see it. All you could hear is a pop, 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 and then like Randy's saying, it's a whole different thing. If you've never tried it, give it a go.
That's a great old bait.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to like the eye wing and the pompadour. The metally sound. Obviously they weren't jointed, but let's see here. Yeah, gators. I don't know if Randy is writing an essay over there, or if he's reading and replying to comments.
I responded to that. I said I was trying to be your Joe Rogan's Jamie.
I saw that. Yeah, I appreciate that, brother. I need to give you.
And also, P.S. Can you just never bring up Jitterbug ever again? Because then that song gets stuck in my head, and I hate myself for it.
Camp Waffle.
I feel like I want to start double snapping my fingers.
Jitterbug. Randy's channel is below. Go subscribe to him. We want to try to get him to 1,000 without dropping any videos. We love Randy.
But 500 will get me in a kilt per G fan.
Yeah, 500 will get him in a kilt. So even a tactical kilt. We'll find him a tactical kilt. Ruben said, yeah, Gary Dobbins was a great host, very down to earth. Yeah, dude. It's very few like that I actually go on YouTube and watch like other fishing things just because of time. But I saw that one. I think I sat my whole lunch break and watched that. It was a really
what time
cool
are you at right now, Debo?
7:55. I'm only 25 minutes behind.
So 8:06. There's a South Jersey fisherman, this or that. I have no idea what those words mean put together, so that's up to you.
Okay, let me go. I'm going to scroll quickly. Brian, I did want to call Brian out. He said he watched a video of me fishing a lipless, and he finally had some confidence to throw it and caught a bait. This is kind of what Shan was talking about. You read these things of people like, listen, I'm just a guy. I'm not a pro. I've never fished. Actually, I fished one tournament and I won it. That was when I was 10 years old, though. I don't fish, tournaments and stuff. I'm just a guy. So kind of like Shan said, when you meet people that say, listen, I caught a fish because of you, telling me this or giving you tips because of that, it's awesome. I mean, it means a ton to me. So Brian, cool. Frank kind of saying that's the same thing. Shan's Instagram has some very informative information. He does. He puts a lot of really cool stuff out there. Make sure you go check out Shan on Instagram. Shan, I'll put it below. He's the aquatic biologist. If you
I'm on YouTube too, man. You can follow on there. That'd be awesome.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I follow you on there. I know you said you were going to try to get that going. I'll have to check.
Thanks for that, man. No, I got like 700, man. I need 1,000 too.
I'll put it below.
Right on.
Yeah, what's your username on there?
Aquatic biologist.
Okay, Michael. So this is one I have on my imaginary parking lot here that I never got my whiteboard because I'm a slacker. But he said, what's Shan's opinion on removing invasive vegetation if that's what the fish have become accustomed to for the last 40 plus years? Michael, this is a big one. We could probably do a whole show on this. So I don't know that we have the invasive species that a lot of the other places down south have and stuff, like the milfoil. I'm not big on the names of stuff, but so Randy and I, we parked this one because we've got a couple lakes here, one specifically that used to be fire. And I think that's what the young kids say, fire, right? Fire. Amazing.
Lit.
Used to be amazing fishing.
Off the chain. Wait, no. No, keep going.
No cap. No cap.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, good Lord. They treated it and they had like the signs up. Shan, I don't know if this is like a state regulation or something, but they did put the signs up saying this body of water has been treated by X chemical. And I don't remember what else was under it. But basically, these places that we used to fish, a bunch of rocky jetties, good drop-offs, and then they would have a very hard, very thick vegetation line. We did very, very well fishing those vegetation lines, just like you would anywhere else. After they did that, it cleared it up, and it killed off all the vegetation. So what is your opinion on
the one lake? It didn't even necessarily kill off the vegetation. It just made it longer and stringier and stinkier and worse fishing.
So I don't even know where to go with that.
That happens.
So what is your opinion, I guess, on removing those and like when they treat it with those chemicals and stuff, like what happens? What do the fish do? Let's say it's a very grassy lake. So like Randy and I were talking, it's a lake that was very grassy. We fished lines, we fished pockets. After all that pretty much went away, what do you do? What do the fish kind of do? How do they adapt?
All right. So I guess the best way, that's why I like doing ponds, because
this is probably technically a pond. I think this is probably a 50
it doesn't matter. You take
lake,
1 acre or
1,000
1,000 acres. If it's bad for 1 acre, it's bad. It gets, it doesn't get any better, the bigger it gets. So let's take a 1 acre pond. Once a 1 acre pond gets, say, 30% covered from the bottom to the top with any weed, okay, it's negatively impacting the fish population in a couple different ways.
Real quick, it's 40 acres.
40. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. So if you've got, say, all the way around 40 acres of water, right, all the way around that bank, which I've been in this situation before, out to about 7 or 8 feet deep is just weed cover, So that's giving your bait fish too many places to hide. It's also giving your larval bass too many places to hide. So generally what you see in that situation is, if it's left to do that for a long period of time, you'll see the older bass kind of just starve out, and too many young bass survive because the older bass can't prey on them. And you end up with a pond that's really, really heavy in bass, very small ones, like 8 to 10 inches long. It tends to crowd in that direction if you do that. And what people don't understand is those 10-inch long fish can be 10 years old. You can't grow as many fish as you want, so once it gets into that condition, and that's why I manage my ponds the other way, for no weeds, because now I know I don't have any of those types of issues to deal with. I added my structure when the pond was built in the form of gravel and brush piles and things like that aren't going to grow over the pond, but are still good habitat.
Yeah, that's the big important thing is the extra brush
Really,
piles or
well, that's
whatever
the
you know
thing,
you
man.
put in there.
And when you start getting into that, what you really need to be thinking about is surface area. Okay, like gravel. What does that give you more of? Surface area. You know, what does vertical structure give you more of? Surface area. Anything you put in the pond is more surface area for something to be growing on. And that something is called periphyton. And it's a group of just organic materials, zooplankton and junk growing, right? Well, guess what? Shad scrape that. Bluegill pick at that. You know, so the more surface area that you add that's not completely growing over the pond is good, right? It just depends on what kind. You know, again, too much weeds, take lily pads. They shade the pond, kill the plankton bloom, and drastically reduce the amount of fish that can be held in the pond, like covering a tarp with putting a tarp on your yard. Right. So that's how lily pads would kill you out, with shade. There's all kinds of different ways the plants can take over and beat you that way. And
I know
that's my job, is to keep that from happening.
I know here in Iowa, I don't know how many years back, but we had a really big bloom of, I think it's called brittle braid. It's very, it's that long stringy stuff that comes up and usually gets stuck on people's boats, and they don't pull it off and they go to the next body of water and it, you know, just pass it along. But I know that stuff is very similar. Thanks, Michael.
Real quick, I got to interrupt. So Mike, I haven't seen Mike in here. Mike's another Iowa guy. Mike does, some sort of video work. This is the kind of subscribers that I have that are the best in the freaking industry. I know everybody says that, but you should think your subscribers are the best. But my Feeshin friends, Mike, made this and said, make it a t-shirt. He's, I don't know, does production and stuff, but it's a dude kicking another dude in that says, shut up, Randy. I definitely got to get some of those shirts made, because
that's super funny, Debo. Even though I didn't even, you know, decide to bring up, you know, you almost falling in the water like, I don't know, 7 or 8 times today.
I did trip today. I about went in. I've fell in twice over my YouTube career. One was on camera. Y'all can go back and watch the video.
Oh God,
it was like
so funny.
50-degree water, and the first thing that happens when I fall in, I go because it took my breath away. Because of that, and the second time I wasn't recording, thank goodness. I carry an extra pair of clothes, coat, pants, shirt, everything, in case I fall in. But anyway,
I would just keep going. But either way,
sorry, I apologize.
But yeah, brittle braid, terrible, because it's I assume it's so easily transferable from one body of water to the next. And what's the other one? I know there's some lakes or ponds or whatever to the north of us, Debo. Well, north of me, that have started to get zebra mussels in them.
Yeah,
and those are another.
I don't know anything about zebra mussels, but as far as like the brittle braid and the other stuff that grows up, Shan. So I guess are they just going to hold to different things? Are they just going to adapt? And let's say a pond's had that or a lake's had that for 20. I forget the name of the person that I pinged that. 20 years they've had a place like that that's been full of vegetation. They go in and kill it off. Are they just going to kind of adapt and go find other stuff to hold on and just?
Yeah, like we have hydrilla here a lot, and you see that with the guys at the hydrilla lakes. The hydrilla will, in the big reservoirs, it'll choke the lake out. So what it's doing is it's reducing, the fish can't go up in there, you know? So it's putting all the fish on the outside weed edges.
Is that like
it makes them real easy to catch? And then when they control the
hydrilla,
you
fish the lines. Yep.
Go everywhere else, and the guys go, oh, you've ruined the fishing. They haven't ruined the fishing. The bass haven't gone anywhere. The guys do electrofishing surveys every year. They know the fish are there. You've just changed where they're located.
And the crazy thing
is not what we have.
Lake,
this isn't. I need to look this up. I need to know my vegetation more. This is not what I thought hydrilla was. Or so this is hydrilla. I'll show everybody real quick. This is not.
One thing I can add to that, like most people don't know, and I know a good bit about. There's not very many herbicides and algicides you can put in the water, right? Legally by the EPA. Like if you get caught, you're going to jail. You can't do that, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And they watch us
like
pretty strictly.
Thing, so.
Like there's somebody who comes to your house and checks. So by nature, there's a few chemicals that you use in the water that don't break down quickly. Copper algicides are one of them. A couple of the herbicides, but generally 85%, I'd say, of the herbicides that you use break down and get out of water pretty fast, like within a week. It's what it's designed to do. They don't want it in the water floating around forever.
Right.
So
this stuff, yeah, that's not what I thought hydrilla was. I thought that was more of the coontail stuff. We call it coontail around here, but that's good to know.
They're kind of easy to misidentify. They're very similar looking plants. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not very good on the plant side of stuff. I'll have to look up. I'll do that. I'm not going to jump on and do that now. But we have more of a stuff that's like more of a, we call it coontail, but it's like more of a thick, like a raccoon tail. It's like real thick.
I know what coontail is. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of places with that.
So like you'll have irrigation restrictions on the labels. Like if anybody's interested in, everything's on the label on the jug that you buy. Just read that. It tells you everything you want to know about it, plus some stuff you really don't. But it'll say,
do you have to pay
don't
attention
irrigate
to
from this pond
words
for
on the
7
back?
days. Well, that's how long it takes for the chemical to break down and get out of the water, 7 days. After that, it's gone. It's not lingering around in the water. I hear so many people like, oh, they treated it 10 years ago. I'm like, okay, well, that's not how that works at all.
That makes sense. Yeah, and that's just a lack of knowledge type thing. I used to work for a lawn and garden place. It's the same thing for topical herbicides. Topical herbicides are only going to last a certain amount of time. Once you start getting rain and stuff that's going to wash them off, they're not effective anymore.
Yeah, and then they'll go into the ponds.
Yeah, you're right. Then it runs off and goes in the ponds.
Generally, by nature, they're herbicides in aquatic plants. They're designed to go onto the plant. They're designed to be taken up quickly by the plant, stay inside the plant, and then break down as the plant dies. It's rotted away with bacteria. Right. So where you get into trouble when you treat plants is generally over treating too many of them. And that doesn't have to do with putting too much chemicals in the water. That has to do with allowing too much vegetation to be rotted in the water, because vegetation rotting in the water consumes oxygen. So like what Randy was saying, they sprayed the lake and the fishing got crappy. It's not because of the chemicals, it's because they whacked out the oxygen levels. And it's usually done in the summertime when the oxygen levels are already low.
Oh, that's a really good point. So would you see a big fish kill, or would you not even see it if that happened?
You can't spray. Like I'll make sure that I get my treatments done, my weeds are under control before it gets real hot, so I don't have to have those problems.
That makes a lot of sense. Interesting.
The hotter the water, the less oxygen it holds.
Yep. And we've talked about that, and I'm not an expert on that by any means, but finding places where water runs in, or helping aerate it, or spots that are cooler, or like green vegetation, which obviously wouldn't help if it killed it, but green vegetation puts off that oxygen. So find the grass, find the bass, is a saying in bass fishing.
Actually the only physics that I know at all, so let's not talk about physics after that.
Okay, well, let's go to Braid or Floral. Here's a good one. I said it was going to be this or that. That was before we got Shan on. As I said, tonight's kind of a debacle, everyone. We've got still 3 guys in here talking about fishing and ponds, and we've still got 250 people watching. We love y'all. Thank you very much.
Hey man, that's a lot of folks. What's that?
That's cool. That's fun. This or that. What do you guys normally use? If I could only choose between Braid or Fluoro, see, this is kind of, he didn't say this or that for everything. 95% of the time, I fish.
No, this is across the board.
Doesn't say that. It just says this or that.
No, I'm putting a caveat to it. This is across the board.
Well, if that's the case, I would fish mono then.
What?
Because I'd fish mono. Mono's cheaper. It's got stretch, so I feel like you can better put mono to a rod that's too stiff than take Braid with no stretch and fish it on a fast, quote unquote, fast rod. You have
70 dozen rods. You don't have to worry about.
I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about people in general. 90% of people have a medium heavy fast rod, right? That's their go-to rod. And if you throw Braid on that for a lot of applications, that's just too much. It's too stiff. There's no stretch in it. I'd rather go mono and know that I've got stretch So where's my option in this? I don't know. I fish fluoro
So
90% of the time, I'd say.
you have an option of braid or floral across the
Fluoro,
board.
done. No more frog fishing. I'm fishing fluoro on everything else, I guess.
You could
Okay,
fish
what if you
frogs
do
on
this,
floral.
Debo? What if
You
you
heard it
go
here,
with a
folks.
medium action rod and braid?
So yeah, it depends. So if you've got, what are we talking, medium power or medium action?
Medium power, moderate break with braid.
Perfect. Yeah, because now you've got so the way you think about it is, in every system something has to give, right? So either you've got given your line, you've got given your rod, or you don't have give at all. Drag, obviously, I guess, in the reel. But I think what Shane's trying to say is, if you have a rod that's real flexy with braid that has no stretch, to me, that's a win, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Now, once you start getting to, like, jig fishing or things where you have a hard hook set, you can compensate because you let that fish eat it. You can feel it, and then you can set your hook. So I used to do a series. I need to bring that back. And I'm no expert, but we call it the hook rod line relationship. And one thing that, like, you hear all the pros and everybody talk about on YouTube is, this is the rod you want, this is the line. But nobody talks about the hook. If you've got a little tiny size 6 treble hook that's a thin wire, where does that come into the calculation? If somebody says, for example, you should fish all your square bills on a medium heavy with 15-pound fluorocarbon. Well, that's fine if you got size 2 trebles, decently thick trebles. What happens if you start throwing a square bill that has little small size 6 trebles? Whole different thing. So it's like, you can break it down, but I don't know. We've gone too much on that. Good Lord, I feel like
no, just real quick on that same topic, Debo. The day we took your dad's boat out, we were fishing topwater, throwing those big Strike King
sexy dogs.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't. You were like, oh, hey, we need a mono, blah blah blah, this and that. And I was like, well, I don't have any of those. And you're like, oh, here, use this one. And my right hand doesn't work like that, or my left hand doesn't work like that to be able to work a right-handed retrieve. So I was struggling with my left-handed retrieve because I had Floral on there versus what you had. I kept, doing my hard pops, and my line would actually swoop back and, like, get wrapped around the hooks and things like that, and basically just annoy the hell out of me. So
how about you, Shane? If you can only choose one, braid or fluoro, what do you normally fish?
What kind of fluoro?
Dealer's choice.
Yep.
Tatsu?
Sure, Tatsu.
Tatsu.
Whatever you want.
Okay.
I'll go Tatsu, man. As long as I can use Tatsu, I'll go, because it's a little more. Now, here's a question, though. Do people not fish braid because they think the fish can see the line, and do you think it matters?
Ooh, this is an interesting, and I think actually I talked to Philip. We brought this up the first time you were on, specifically because Philip and I talked about it. And I'm not on the same boat as you, even though you say it and you're an aquatic biologist and tell it, dude. Maybe it's a confidence thing, but listen, I feel like I need every advantage I can get. But I think what we're going into, does line type matter as much as diameter? Is that what you're getting into, Shan?
Well, I hear all kinds of debate, and like, one of the things that I hear guys say is they won't fish that, especially in some of our reservoirs are very clear, because the fish can see the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's relevant.
I agree to a certain point. I agree to a point.
Because from what I've noticed, so if you go to like what Philip and I went yesterday, 40 acres, private water, hardly fished, hasn't seen a lure.
Sure.
Do you really think it matters what
in that situation? No,
it doesn't.
Probably. Well, I shouldn't say no, but not as much. And I think
I was fishing with I was just trying out a lot of different things, and Mike sold me some when I was at Bullshad. He sold me some new mono line. I got to show you that, man. You'll like it. It's like a red braid. It's like a camo line with red in it.
You were saying that, yeah, when we were talking. I've never even heard of this stuff.
That's some nice mono too, man. he recommended it for the big baits. You know, it's big. It's 25. You know, so it's cable.
Can you buy it, or is it only through them?
It's the first time I saw it was at his place. You know,
I've never even heard of it.
No, it's really nice mono though.
Do you know what it's called? Like the brand, or
I
no?
cannot remember the name of it. I don't see it.
That's right.
It was sitting right here. I don't know where I stuck it.
I'll link it. We'll look.
I'll shoot you a picture of it.
Okay.
I think Just Keep Casting kind of just hit the nail on the head. You know, Shan, you said if it's someplace that doesn't get a lot of pressure, blah blah blah, this and that. They said it's all about, you know, the water clarity and the pressure itself. I know Debo and I have gone out. I fished, you know, he was nice enough to give me bright blue braided line because I hate tying on a leader. It's just it's a pain.
It was camo too, bright blue camo. The other one I gave you was bright pink camo.
Bright pink camo. But anyway, there's so much extra of tying on a leader and things like that. And he outfished me probably 5-1 that day because he was using a leader versus me not. And I just gave up out of pure frustration and switched over to something else.
Well,
there's two things.
Again, now a lot of people will hold that up and say, "There's your proof," right? But
Right.
Here's the thing: you're not running braid with the same diameter. Run similar diameters. And then tell me, because it's how the lure is falling and moving in the water, and when you lighten the line, you're changing how the lure moves.
So there's a couple things. Like we could go all around on this. Like we could do a whole show. There's two things to me: water clarity and what type of bait you're throwing. So kind of like Shan was saying, you know, the fish in that lake, maybe they've never seen a lure, and they're probably more aggressive. You know, they don't know necessarily as much of what they're looking at. I would say a reactionary bait. If I bring a spinner bait by a log, I don't think that fish cares if I have 100-pound braid on it or 10-pound mono. It's like when I throw a ball at somebody and they automatically go like this. I think if that fish is hungry, it's going to do that. It's going to do that no matter what's tied onto it. However, or like, you know, muddy water where you can't see the line as much anyway. So it doesn't matter if you're using Floral versus braid. It's, you know, if they can't see it as much. Or if you're going with a reaction bait versus a finesse bait, because there's guys in Michigan that fish those crystal clear lakes that will tell you up and down, you can fish the smallest braid. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're not running a leader, and there's so many guys that are stuck on 8-pound, 6-pound, 4-pound leader because the fish are so line shy, you're not going to catch the fish. So I think depending on the bait, if it's a real finessey bait where it's a finicky fish and they can really see it, I think it does help. But if it's like,
it's absolutely essential. Yeah, you're right. That's where you start getting into. It's very technique specific.
Yep. And
I
think
there's no one size fits all answer to what the question is whatsoever.
Not really.
Just kind of like when I say there's, you know, kind of going back to the fish on a log analogy. I was talking to a subscriber about this the other day. He was talking about, you know, what's the best bait, what's the best color, and you know, we were kind of going on the whole rabbit hole. But I think if you've got a spot where you think is going to hold fish, like you're really confident in it, I don't think it matters if I have a Texas rigged pit boss, a Texas rigged ribbon tail worm, a Texas rigged D-bomb, go down the list. If I'm pretty sure there's a fish there and I put a bait in front of it and it's hungry, it's going to eat it, right?
But
the
bait that you're most comfortable with in that scenario.
That's kind of what I mean. So where is the line between confidence in a bait versus fish like this bait so much more?
And like, I went further on it, Debo. I was like, today I was thinking as I was getting, you know, rods out of my truck as we were going to the next spot, I was like, man, I don't feel comfortable with this combo, regardless of what I throw on it. It's new. I haven't caught anything on it. I don't feel comfortable with it. I'm going to take this other one. So there's way too many X, Y's, and Z's that go along with fishing that there's, like I said, there's no one good answer.
I'm still at 8:19. I'm going to jump ahead. I can't believe I'm that far behind. I am so sorry, Feeshin friends. So we're at an hour 9. Shan, how long do you have? Do you have another 30 minutes?
Sure,
go
man.
An hour and a half.
You need.
Sweet. All right. We'll probably go to an hour and a half. So we've still got 250 people in here, which is crazy. I love y'all. Thank you so much.
You were at 8:19. You missed the 8:13 comment by Jesse that says Debo still uses Bing. when you were looking up whatever you that.
Yeah,
One
I
made
just
me
clicked
laugh
a new
quite bit.
tab, and it's apparently it's Bing. I
Have
don't
you
know how
ever
many.
Binged anything on Google?
No, I have Googled on Google before. Okay, need a better name with the $2 donation. Said, what's better for the environment, mono, braid, or fluoro? That's interesting. I
Ooh.
don't know if there's a good answer for that. Shan, I don't know if you've got stuff. I hope I'm going to scroll back here and see if I've
It's
missed
not like
anybody.
Take your line
lead
with you,
versus
man. Don't litter.
tungsten.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, Shan. I don't think there's a good answer for this. This is why they have the PVC pipes in all the places that you see now. If you're bank fishing, I guess. If you pack it in, pack it out. Like, don't leave
Yep.
your trash, people.
So
I don't know that
Shan,
there's one better than the other.
there's no line that. So like I said, the lead versus tungsten. Tungsten's going to go away eventually, and there's some plastics that go away versus other plastics that never do. Lines are just lines, and they're just going to stay in the water until either they're pulled
I would
out
think
or.
like your fluorocarbon. I mean, I know this about fluorocarbon, right? Have you ever got fluorocarbon that just seems to break?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just, it's like it breaks at weird times and it doesn't work.
Yep.
It seems to be terrible.
So
That's
the problem with
fluorocarbon
nylon.
it's been exposed to light.
Yeah, I was just going to say the
Okay.
problem with nylon and fluorocarbon is it's UV sensitive.
Yeah.
Not necessarily light, but UV, specifically
Yeah, exactly.
UV light
So
from the sun.
it was stored
Yeah.
by a window and even inside its own
Yes.
box. You know what I mean? It was just brighter in a brighter area than
So
some
just
other
that little part of
fluorocarbons.
the spool, even that gets
Yeah,
exposed
and
to light.
especially the ones that are on like the clear round,
Yeah.
those things go bad so fast because of the light.
Huh.
What's that word? Degradation. I don't know.
Yep, degradation. That's correct. Yeah,
that right?
degrades.
So, you know, when people say, "Oh, my fluoro's breaking," it's like, yeah, because it's been in the light too long. You're probably leaving your rod outside.
Yep.
That's bad.
Yep. Mike, speaking of Thunderhawk lures, I think somebody was talking about the grenade earlier. Mike will be on next week. Ton of fun. Thunderhawk. I'm excited to have him on. Mike, how are you, brother? So here's another one. Here's not necessarily tied to the line diameter and what's biting, but Lucas brings up a good point. I tend to have a lot of wood emery braid cuts into the wood and gets caught, lost too many lures that way. Yeah, fluorocarbon is, I'll stand on that hill. Fluorocarbon is way stronger around rocks and things that are abrasive. Like you can think of, like, if you don't fish braid a lot, braid is like a bunch of little rope strands. And if you take, like, if you've ever watched, like Randy and I, we love to watch Forged in Fire. You watch Doug Marcaida chop into a rope and it cuts a little, you know, like it will cut. It cuts half those strands of the rope and, you know, you've only got half of it there. That's exactly what braid does. If you bring it over rock or rough woods, it'll fray, you know, a few of those strands of the braid and make it super weak. It's a pop point. Whereas fluoro and stuff is much, much more abrasion resistant. So that's, you know, kind of another thing to think about if you're fishing around grass and stuff. Yeah, braid's good.
I can add something to that you reminded me of, man. Another on the flip side of that, here we get some stained water a lot in the reservoirs around after the rains and stuff, you know, and I'll automatically on some of my rigs go to straight braid because of the snapping and violent kind of popping action you can get when you get to straight braid, and you don't have to worry about it in stained water. So I get a good bite that way sometimes in stained water with certain baits.
Yep. Yeah, you get a different action. Yeah, and kind of going back to the, you know, a stretch or not. And that's kind of something new that I've even heard a lot of guys switching over to braid when they're fishing deeper cranks or real long crank casts because there's no stretch. You know, the guys with fishing mono, you send mono out on a super long cast, you know, a 50-yard cast, even on a top water, even if you set the hook decently, there's so much stretch in that. It's crazy. So Eric, okay, I am way behind already. 8:45. I'm already 5 minutes behind. This or that, black frog or white frog? Eric with a $10 on that question. Eric, thank you, brother. 90% of the time, I would venture to say, I'd say 90% of the time, I would go with a black frog. The more I've fished frogs over the past years, an all black frog is it. Like for me, the way I fish around here, of overhangs and shadows where they can't see the frog as much. You know, if you're fishing pads and scum, doesn't matter. You know, they just need something to find. But when you're fishing edges, low light, And there's people that argue like if it's low light, you want a white frog. But for me, 90% of the time, black frog.
I like the way you think, sir.
Yeah, I have to agree. Probably black frog.
I could bust that low light thing down a little bit.
Yeah, look, hold on 1 second. Gators asked Shane, is that a Pirates or a Purdue hat? If it was Purdue, I wouldn't have let him on here.
Hat, man.
Yeah, he switched it before. I was giving him crap. My buddy grew up in Boston. I'm not really a Boston fan, but he had a Yankees hat on. He's like, I'll change it. Yeah, if it was Purdue, here in Iowa, we don't have any professional teams. So like the Hawks are kind of the pro team. Yeah, if it was Purdue, I wouldn't have let him on. I'm kidding. Yeah, so going to the light stuff, I'm going to scroll through here. Give me a chance to catch up.
Well,
oh, Cincinnati King, real quick. I did see that. Tackle Warehouse did just put out, there's a line that's biodegradable. That makes me nervous. But it's cool.
Yeah, that really does. Because how long with just water setting or just
that's
a
what I was
little bit
thinking.
of water setting in your reel, it just...
I don't know. So anyway, I opened up a can of worms there. That's all I'm going to say is I saw that too, and it's interesting. Okay, Shan, low light.
Low light, dark lures. Bright light, light lures. So if it depends on the black or white frog, what color is the sky?
I've heard this both ways, and I don't know why it differs for frogs, but I've heard people on this hill like argue. So generally, okay, so let's say you have, I'm not even going to say bluebird skies, kind of cloudy, decently bright out. What color normally would you throw for top water?
White to blue, white. Black to dark, black.
Okay, so why a whitish bluish on the clearer, like kind of cloudier days?
Okay, so let's just talk about water, all right? And fish, because the fish has to look through the water, right?
And they're looking up. That's another big thing that I stress to people when I argue this.
Right.
It's not like me looking at the lure. They're looking up.
Right. So they're looking up against a light background or looking up against a dark background. We can agree on that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, we want to take lateral line out of it because they can already feel it. They know where it is, but right, we know that too. But okay, so if let's say the water's green, right? And how does your eye see color? Well, when you look at green, the green is absorbing, the water's absorbing every single color except green. Green is being reflected, going back into your eye. Your eye looks at it and says that water is green. Therefore, the most visible color in green water is going to be some shade of green because that's the most reflected thing. So same thing with black water, same thing with white. If you're looking against a black background, it's going to be actually easier to pick a dark figure out of it than a light one. And a white background will be a light figure against a light background, should theoretically be easier to pick out.
So I've heard that too. So the interesting thing is, like, so when I've gone into that, I've had people say, you want something that contrasts when they look up, right? If it's dark out, you need to go with a white lure. My thing is, one, it depends on where you're casting and what the light penetration is, right? If you're casting a lure into a dark cove, is going to be different from fishing the edge of the grass where it's completely light out, right?
Right.
But I think we can both agree on, if a fish is looking up, let's say the skies are white, it's going to be easier to see a white lure, but a black is going to create a silhouette, right? Still, it's going to create that silhouette because it's lacking all other color.
Right.
So I don't know. And again, I think this is where it comes down to a confidence thing. So I think somebody could pick up a red frog if they have confidence in it and they're putting it in the right spots, could fish just as well with me with a black frog.
Hey, Debo,
I
just
kind of fall back
quick,
onto if they're on a surface bite like that, it's not going to matter that much. I've switched up buzz baits, I've switched up jitterbugs, I've switched up all kinds of baits, when I lost them or whatever, when they're on a surface bite, it didn't seem to matter that much. I kind of default back to, that's interesting though. Yeah, you're right. It will silhouette. And then you also get into like what are the species of fish that you're going after? Like many species of fish are light on the bottom, the bait fish, you know. To match the hatch, you need to fish something lighter on the bottom anyway.
Yep.
Hey,
I think there are
Debo, just
situations
real
where
quick.
that comes in. Yeah.
Dude, I gotta jump out just real quick. There's a decent storm just rolled in right now, and it's kind of going crazy outside, and I gotta put some stuff away real quick. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go do you, brother. Just jump back in.
Yeah.
Just jump out and.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do.
Okay.
right.
I don't know if I need to kick you.
I'll just leave.
Okay. Yeah, just leave. Shut up, Randy. Yeah, Tony said it will keel if you watch Doug Marcaida. Just keep casting. That's kind of a whole nother thing. Yeah, if you're fishing around any sort of toothy critters, a steel or a thick mono or fluoro, you know, obviously is going to be a kind of a different thing, and that's not a visibility thing. That's I want to keep my lure thing. So
yeah.
Let's see. So what am I at? 8:49. Okay, I'm only 6 minutes behind. Let's roll through. And Shannon, if you see any questions, throw them out. Jump in. Oh, Japan tackle. Somewhere. Japan, this is a good one. I like braid to make crankbaits run more shallow. Yeah, so that's another thing people don't think about too, is depending on how, you know, if you go with a lighter line, it imparts more action into that lure.
Absolutely.
And it can get deeper down. So like if I'm fishing an 8-pound fluoro, I can get that bait deeper. So like when you see a crankbait that says 3 to 6 feet, I can get that crankbait closer to 6 feet than if I'm using like I don't know that you would, but let's say a 17-pound fluoro is going to keep that crankbait way up higher. So remember, you can fluctuate how deep that bait is going to go by the size of line you're using.
Yeah, when you start tinkering with the line diameter and depth of the crankbait, and also to the gear ratios on your reel, you know, how much retrieve you're actually getting per turn, and paying very close attention to that rate of retrieve, you're getting into very technical crankbait fishing.
Yep. And well, I wouldn't even say super technical. Coming from a bank perspective, I oftentimes will just go heavier because I'm casting deep and bringing shallow. So generally I'll fish on the heavier side, the shallower side, you know, with my line to keep it shallower. But yeah, I would agree. If you're fishing from a boat and you start tinkering with that, yeah, you're getting into the, you know, I've got 3 combos, one with 8-pound, one with 10-pound, one with 12-pound with all the same lure, just so those pros can hit different weights. Gerald Swindle has a video on that talking about that, you know. And
yeah, it'll take the exact same rig, but make it, you know, a foot or two difference. And sometimes that is the difference, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I skipped over the question. I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry. I had it up there for a second, but loop knots versus snaps or clips. I'm honestly not a loop knot guy. If I need to, like, I know some guys are real big on, so instead of tying directly to like a split ring, using like a clip or something that has more area so the bait can have more action.
Oh, I see.
A lot of guys will tie a loop knot like on top water because it'll make a bait easier to walk. I mean, I'm personally not a loop knot guy. I know people love it. I'm really not even a snap guy. Like, even on my top water walking baits, I think if you leave the right amount of slack in there, you can get them to walk just as good. But, you know, I'm not getting into the nitty gritty with, you know, the technical tournament stuff. Shan, I don't know if you do any different, if you mess with like.
No, I don't really. I've tied those loop knots before. I think there's a diagram in the Rapala package that'll show you how to tie their knot that does that. That's the only time I've ever done it. I tried it, and it's cool, and it definitely gives some action, but I think it probably falls back onto a lot of the places I fish are private. A lot of the places I fish are, you know, not heavily pressured. So I just kind of tied a lure on and start firing.
Yeah, there's only 2 things I would get into that, Tim, would be if you're using a snap or a clip, make sure it's a good one. There's a bunch of different kinds out there, like the bronze ones with the straight piece where you just like move the straight piece over. I've bent so many of those out as a younger angler. I don't even use those. Use a good clip. And 2, if you're talking about imparting action like a topwater bait, think about using a mono. Like if I know a lot of guys will use braid and say I get it tangled a lot. You know, braid is so limp that when you're walking that lure back and forth, it'll get tangled in the trebles.
I've noticed that.
Yep. Yep. So if you do that, run like whatever braid size you want. I'm not going to tell you what size, but run like a 15-pound or 14-pound mono leader, and it will cut that out because mono is stiffer and it floats, less absorbent.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll sit right in front of it so you won't get your braid tangled.
What kind of knot do you like right there? Between the
I'm a big fan of the Alberto knot. That's my go-to. Yep.
Yeah.
You can look up the FG. FG is really, really nice because it's so thin, but it's a pain in the butt to tie. I took a winter trying to do it, and I'm still not good at it. So
I can't tie either one. Actually, I'm terrible at both.
I could do. I bet under a minute I could tie an Alberto knot on stream here, and I could even show it for people. I'm a huge fan of it. It doesn't break on me. Uni to uni is good in a pinch, but it's big. Doesn't go through guides very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Alberto for me. Sean, are you an Iowa guy? Hawk Wrestling, absolutely. Top of the heap on that. Japan Tackle. Dizzle's back. Japan Tackle. We had to get our Guggen question. Every live, we have a Guggen question because you either can love or hate Guggens. Actually, funny enough, I actually did order the Bandito bugs. What's that?
There's a lot of people talking on there.
Yeah, it goes crazy. I can never keep up with chat. It's insanity. That's why I love the Feeshin friends. It's like we've got our main conversation, and we have people having sub conversations, learning, talking back and forth. That's what makes it fun. But the Guggen Bandito bug, I actually did buy some because they're one of the few companies that has the green pumpkin purple belly. People don't make that. That's one of my favorites. So knock on them all you want. Tell more companies to make that color. But the Guggen frog, I personally didn't like it. I thought it was a little bit too stiff. Randy, on the other hand, I know did really like it.
I did like it because it is a little bit stiffer. I felt like, just for me, because DEBO'S more of a thumber when he casts his rods.
Thumber?
Yep, thumber. I don't like to thumb my rods too much, so I go with something that's a little bit heavier, and I feel like the stiffer it is, it's a little bit heavier and a little bit
well, I've been watching you jig fish a lot, right?
I love jig fishing.
Yeah. What break down like your favorite retrieve? Like how do you like mostly fish?
There isn't one, and that's what I think makes me a little bit different from a normal fisherman, because like I will do like a yo-yo where I never let it hit the ground or hit the bottom. And then I'll drag it, and then I'll pop it, and then sometimes I'll even do like a straight retrieve and then kill it. Retrieve, kill it. So there's no real answer to that question, I guess.
No, it's interesting you say that though, because the guys that I talk to who prefer one lure over another like that find a way to use that lure in every scenario.
100%. Yeah.
You can be good that way, man. Some guys make a living doing that.
Yeah, I feel
dirty. He's dirty with a jig. He'll topwater fish a jig if he can.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've burned a topwater jig before. Yeah.
Perfect example of this. Kind of what he's talking about. Bruce, real quick. I have this up. The Shimano Celis. Which one is this? This is actually, we were talking about topwater. This is one of those medium heavies that's a little bit softer. 7.2 medium heavy, rated for lures up to an ounce, but it's decently soft. The only issue with it I had was this piece came off. That happens on a bunch of rods. But otherwise, this rod has been awesome for the money. Absolutely love it. The Arid X, same thing. Great budget rod. Tackle Junkie did a review on it. Or not Tackle Junkie, I'm sorry. Bass Geek did. I've got one. Both really good rods. Honestly, I don't think you go wrong with one over the other, but perfect example, actually, that we were going back to that. Randy, there was a day we were both fishing. Randy absolutely destroyed me, probably 10-1, maybe even less than that. 10-0 for a while. And we were fishing kind of like we were talking about before, Shan, standing grass. I don't remember what all I was fishing or doing, but Randy's like, what happens if I start dropping my jig down in these holes and then kind of like yo-yoing it, almost like you would a lipless? And he just absolutely slaughtered me that day. And he's like, dude, you know what I was doing? We started talking. I'm like, what? With a jig? He's like, listen, I know it's not standard, but I was essentially yo-yoing my jig in these holes and along this grass line, and he absolutely spanked me. So.
Yeah. So from the bank, you could literally see these decent sized holes. I don't know, maybe 6 foot circumference, and you'd pitch it a little bit past, pull it through, and then you get a couple of yo-yos or a couple of good hard pops. You never let it hit the ground again, and the bass would just out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep casting says Shan equals a gangsta. Shan, how often do you get called a gangsta?
Thanks, man. Well, I don't know, a few times, I guess.
A few times, I guess. Nathan, I need to make a video on this, dude. I've been in a slump too. Like, it is, what is today? The 23rd. By this time last year, I already had.
Shut up,
dude. By this time last year, I had 2 5-pounders. I had a day where I caught 50 fish, slaughtering it. Last year was amazing. I have 9 fish this year, is all. I was skunked before today. I was skunked, I think, 2 times in a row. Me and Randy, 2 times in a row.
Yeah, 3 times, Nathan, actually. 3 times.
3 times. The thing about fishing is it's a numbers game. So if you try to like plan it on a good day and that day sucks, don't look at it as a bad day. Just keep going, because the more you go out, the more chances you have to catch fish. And fish don't necessarily follow the rules. We can write the rule book of, if it's this water temperature, if you have this around, you'll catch fish on this. And it doesn't always play out. So I'm telling you, go as much as you can and keep going. They can't hide forever.
I've tried 2 or 3 times to yell at them and be like, haven't you read the book?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be biting right now.
To be doing?
This is a wind-blown point. Why are you not biting? You should be here eating food. Just do it. And they don't ever listen. So,
Big John, this or that, Abu versus Luz. Both companies have good stuff. So many people get caught on if it's only made in Japan. I was having a conversation with a gentleman. It wasn't even a conversation. It was an argument because he was very confrontational. Was talking about one of my crap reels that I was fishing. It was a Luz. Chinese piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. Why would you fish something like that? It's junk. I only fish things from Japan. And he had a Metanium, which is a reel made in Japan. He had that reel on an X Pride, which is a Shimano rod, 250 some bucks. You know where the X Prides are made? China. So yeah, we got laughing about it, and he's like, dude, I'm sorry, I was a prick. It was funny because he kind of came full circle and we got talking about it. But every company has good stuff. You look at stuff nowadays in technology versus the stuff 30 years ago, completely different. So you can pick up, there's a number of reels. I just did a review on the what was it for Luz? The KVD Luz, $130. It's a nice reel, good all around reel. Or the Luz LFS, $100 reel. Love that reel. There's kind of good reels in everything now. So many of them come a long ways. And Luz and Abu are actually made in the same factory, in case you're wondering.
I didn't know that.
But it's personal preference. I think they both have good stuff. Randy, I know, is an Abu fan. Randy loves the Abu.
Yeah. I'm kind of starting to come around to Luz, and I really, not saying anything bad against Abu, but I hope that Luz doesn't take that same path of just starting to put out really, and I'm going to say cheap, but I don't mean cheap in a way that it's less than another one. But I just hope that they don't put out a whole lot of product that is cheap, is subpar, just kind of garbage product, where I know Abu can be allegedly claimed as they put out some of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, both companies have done weird things. Like the Mach Crush is like $160 reel, and it's a graphite frame. Like, that still puzzles me to this day. This reel, this is the Abu Garcia Revo Stx, regularly a $200 reel. Tech Warehouse had this on sale for $99. So look for those deals. Look for those things where Amazon had the Revo Stx, which is like $160, I think, on sale for $89. Look for those deals. You can find that stuff where they do the markdowns or the last year's stuff. Both companies have good stuff. Both companies have stuff that is kind of suspect, that makes me kind of like the Zada. I know I'm going to take heat on this. Wasn't a big fan of the Zada / Roxani. $180, I think.
that was the was it gray kind of army
The
camo?
tan. Yeah, like
Yes.
desert
The
desert
FDE,
tan, yeah.
flat dark earth.
Yeah. Flat desert earth or whatever.
That was not a good combo for that
It casted
dollar
well,
price.
but like for that price, yeah, it casted well for that price. So I don't know. We could go down a whole nother rabbit hole on that, but
I like the
okay.
5500 Garcia, man.
Like the round reel, the old round reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. There's a lot of guys that love the round reels, especially talking swim baits. Once you start getting to like the Calcuttas or
Dude, you get that 5500
what's the other
Garcia
one?
with the power handle, and tell me you don't like it on a swim bait rod.
That's what I was just gonna say. Is yeah, a lot of especially the swim bait guys like the Calcutta. What is it? Conquest, I think, is the other.
Oh, I bet they do. Yeah, I haven't seen
Shimano?
that in a long time.
Yeah, I used to have one of the old Abu. What is it? The Ambassadors back in the day, I think is what they were. Like the big round ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, like, I go hold that. I think Dad still has one, and I'm like, these things are awful. But there's people that still love them. There's people that love the round reels.
Right.
I don't know. All what you like. All what you're confident with. What else we got for questions? Okay, we're at an hour 30.
I got a really good one
people.
from Eric
What do you
B at 9:10. I feel like I can really weigh in on this one.
God, how am I that far behind again? Okay. This is one. Yeah, Nick, thank you so much, dude. If I had my whiteboard here, we wouldn't have forgot this. So what were my 3 questions at the beginning? Did we answer all of them? One was the herbicide vegetation. We got that one. I want to say I had 3 questions for Shan in the parking lot. This is one of them. Okay, so Nick, thank you for the donation, brother. We still need to learn about sexing fish. So
yeah, we skipped over that one, didn't we?
Yeah. So as a bank angler, like, is there a way for, I guess, anybody? We catch a fish. I know you said spring specifically, but let's say any time of the year. Can you tell visually? Like,
well, I mean, yeah, it's really getting into dependent on the species of the fish.
I'm sorry, bass. We're talking
bass. Yeah, bass are hard. That's a difficult one. But
that sucks.
Generally speaking, like once you go past probably about 7 pounds, that's generally always a female.
Right. That's what I've heard too. Yeah, they pretty much
you don't. I mean, you don't even really see very many 6-pound males. I've seen a couple, but they're usually like about 4-pounders. 5-pounders. They top.
I've heard like
less.
I've heard all kinds of stuff like darker around the eyes, like different shaped mouth. Is there any like?
Yeah, there's all kinds of like really technical things. Like you can go in and like to like the anal area, and there's like different, dimples and there's a lot of things that you can do, but there's actually not a lot of things that the average person, average fisherman can do. If you've got a 3-pound female and a 3-pound male and it's not the springtime, it's going to be real hard.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better because that's something I've always kind of skipped over. People have asked it and I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just hoping to catch
I'm
fish.
no good at it. I can promise you I'm no good at it. So,
I mean, okay, I'm still going with a more of a bucket, more of a rounded mouth as a female, because usually, you talk about, oh, I caught this big old bucket mouth. Usually it's a female.
I saw a guy talking about that. Yeah, it's something about to do with the shape of the jaw. I haven't heard
usually
that
I thought a male had more of like a pointy jaw, where it came to more of a point where a female would be more rounded or more of a bucket mouth.
I saw that before, but I'm not sure. I would like to test that theory. You would have to probably do it with a fillet knife to be sure.
But so I'm just gonna say that I'm right on these whenever I'm doing my own thing.
You're good, man. I will just call you right on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless we get into a pond where it's got some dinks that need to be weeded out, we could definitely do it there.
Around here.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I had something I was going to say. Hell, I don't know. Damn
it.
It was a good
just
comeback.
Real quick, I did have something that, just watching different YouTube videos, because I'm totally different than what Debo is. I
know what it was. I'll jump in quick. Anytime I catch a big fish, I always call it a big girl or a big hog, it's automatically I default to big. So I'm just sticking with that. If it's a bigger fish, it's a girl. If it's smaller, I call it a dink. Whether that's boy or girl, I don't know. So
touche.
That's my 2 cents.
So what I was saying is, like a lot of fish that I've seen people catch on different YouTube videos and things like that, they look like they have the body, they have the head, the shoulders, whatever you want to call it, of like a big girl, like Debo would like to call them. But they're all just like thinned out, super, super thin. I've been
Yeah.
seeing a ton of fish lately, not ones that I catch because I don't know how to catch fish anymore, but fish that other people are catching, they all just look super thin. Is
Yeah.
that just like
It's a good eye,
full
man. It's
on?
a
There's
very
not enough,
observant. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
enough
And
food in the water?
Yeah, no, what you're describing is a lake that's probably here in Georgia. Again, we would be going back to, remember our Pac-Man example,
Yeah.
where there's too many predators.
Oh, okay.
So when you start getting really long and thin fish like that, you generally are dealing with like kind of like a broken forage base. Like maybe there's too many. I'll just say around here it'll be too many crappie. So there'll be a lot of small crappie in the spring, but then none in the fall and the winter. So the bass
just to be
grow
sure
like
people are
half
clear.
the year, and then half the year they don't, and they get that real skinny anorexic look. That's kind of a sign of a problem with the forage base or the balance of the pond. Let's say that's a sign of a problem with balance of the pond. And
yeah, I was just going to say
fix that simply by stocking. You generally have to adjust the balance of the predators to prey. And
so yeah, that's like a threefold. There's too many bigs, too many littles, and not enough food.
Yeah. And so what I have is a scale. It's basically like a BMI index for bass and for bluegill. And so we'll measure the bass that we catch, and we'll and across the bottom of the scale, and I instantly know, like, the 17.5-inch bass on is the BMI on it is like 3 pounds. So
right.
if in my ponds, if I take that bass and I lay it down there and I say, well, I've got a 17-inch bass here and it weighs 3.5 pounds. All right, that's above weight. Basically, I'm doing a good job. And I want all my fish to be above that standard weight.
Yeah. So what Shan's talking about, and Shan, to be clear on predators, you don't just mean, because I think when people around here hear that, we're not just talking about toothy predators. We're talking about anything in that lake that's going to eat other food that a bass
anything
would.
that's not forage. So up north, you include your pike and your muskie would be predatory fish. Eating other fish.
Yellow bass here, because
sure,
they're eating other
absolutely.
food.
They'd be eating fish. Crappie are predatory fish. Crappie are particularly predatory. They compete all over the food chain with every fish in the pond. And generally speaking, harvesting crappie in ponds, like smaller bodies of water, is necessary to keep them healthy. They just overcrowd severely.
So is it that they're
I'll
just
show
so
this real quick.
voracious and they just want to eat and eat and eat, or is it like they're
It's a
different
starting
shape
gate deal.
of their
They
body?
get a jump. They get a jump in the spring. That crappie spawns early.
Sure.
Earlier than everything. And then you think about the nature of how fish spawn. There's literally like hundreds of millions of baby crappie in the edges of the pond.
Sure.
Well, again, when you understand there's phytoplankton, zooplankton, aquatic insects, brim, and bass, that's your food web. If you've got crappie in there eating up all the zooplankton, eating up all the small bluegill that the bass should be eating when they're not even born yet, all right? So the bass are born and starve immediately. The ones that actually get enough to live around crappie get consumed by the crappie, because those crappie fry are big enough to eat them, and they're not even as big as a match head. I'm talking about like larval fish wars, and people are like, well, I'll go keep all the crappie. And I'm like, again, we're talking about larval fish wars, right?
Yeah,
Even if you catch all
trying
the
to
keepers,
fight.
you've still got the
it's
little
already
guys
messed
eating the
up
other
by
little
the time
guys.
they're adults.
So like you were saying, even if you stock a pond or lake or whatever, let's say we stock 1,000 minnows of whatever, I don't know, whatever bass minnows or whatever. So many of those minnows are already getting ate, or I don't know what a baby bass is called if it's a minnow. A small fry, I guess, bass fry. They're already getting ate by everything else. Yeah, so they don't even get the chance to grow that big.
Right. So you've got, in the scenario we're using here at crappie, you've got a predatory fish that's now consumed your bass population down basically to nothing, because crappie are really good at doing that. So if you get a couple of springs where the crappie line up real early and the bass go a little bit later, you can have years and years of no bass survival.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's crazy.
these are the, like I said, these are the things I'm talking about that people just don't have any idea. Does that happen every single year? No. Does that happen every single pond? No. But as a consultant and as somebody who, if you were building a pond in your backyard, you certainly would want to have this information, because you're about to ruin it. You're not going to be able to get anything you want out of it unless you listen and do it right.
Just real quick, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Nobody. It's a recent movie that came out about a random dude that just goes in and fixes whatever is wrong by whatever means. That's what I'm just envisioning you as. Like, you're like seeing a pond and you're like, all right, you crappie, you're out of here, and you're just going in there and doing whatever you need to do. That's awesome.
Chris, why is everyone picking on me for using Bing? That's just what comes up on my computer. Is it because I'm old?
To finish up the thought that I had about the relative weight chart. So,
oh yes, that's what I was holding up for everybody wondering what the hell I was holding up.
Yeah,
that's Shan's relative weight chart. So kind of explain that.
Yep.
Yeah,
people have seen me use it a few times.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a BMI index for bass. So I put the bass on there, and I instantly know. Like the other day, I caught a 22 1/4 inch bass, right? Flat, full of eggs in a low bass population, meaning that it's probably got like 25 bass or so per acre. And I just know this by the size of the relative size of the fish. And when you get to, when you understand lake management, you understand those skinny fish that you're describing to me.
Yeah.
I can see how many of them there are per acre. And there's like 50. Okay. These giant thick fish with shoulders, they're in lakes with like 30, 35, 40 bass per acre. Right.
Sure.
When you start increasing the numbers of fish, you decrease the average size. Does it make sense?
That's why the places where you catch a lot of fish, you're probably not going to catch big fish if you're
not
catching
too many. Now, and that's kind of what I describe as quality fish, not quality fishing, where you go out and you catch 100,000 8-inch bass, and then one bass that can eat all those once every 5 years.
So what you've explained is DEBO'S fishing versus every other channel. I'm the channel that can catch 1,000 8-inch versus all these other awesome channels you see on YouTube that catch big fish. I don't know.
So at that point in time, you need to really start looking at management of fish, and it's not just the little fish, which I know a lot of people are really hesitant to like want to take out any big fish from their waters. But I don't know where I heard it or where I came across it, but it's like there's a percentage, and you'd probably be able to tell it better than what I would, but a percentage of bigs, littles, and then everything in between. Which
and now you're really touching on what I'm trying to teach people is, okay, when you stock a pond right, okay, and you're like 4 or 5 years in and everything's humming along, there's a mixture of sizes of fish.
Right.
We can use this information because we know how to stock the pond right to be able to identify lakes that will produce the same results. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I'm trying to teach people, that parallel. If you put the fish on this chart in a 3-acre pond and it's above average, then you know you're doing a good job, and you know your bass population is okay. Now, what happens if you take that same 3-pound, you got a 3-pound fish, you got a 4-pound fish, they're okay, but then you come back and you got 27 1 to 1.5 pound fish that are underweight.
Right.
Okay, well, that tells me my bigger fish have the sufficient forage, but those fish right there are getting crowded. What did I say? They start getting skinny when you start getting too many. There's your slot limit. You start harvesting those smaller fish and returning the bigger fish. Make sense?
So, yeah, 100%. So that was
the tough part is too, Shan, Randy, to jump in, kind of one thing that we're up against is limits, which is kind of crappy. Like
water. Yeah, you're stuck into that whole idea, and then those limits are set there for different reasons. Those limits might be there because of the way the biology of that lake is, and it's necessary to manage that lake in that fashion. based
So I
on the
almost feel like
species that are there.
I almost feel like slot limits would be, because like some places here in Iowa we have slot limits for walleye where you can keep like certain amounts under this. But like most of the bass lakes around here, like you can catch, like let's say a good lake is a 17-inch lake, and maybe I shouldn't say good, but like that's how big they have to be before you can keep them, right? Which is nice.
Bring me that plug. You plug the phone in. Sorry about. I'm running out of power. I'm gonna plug in real quick.
That's all right. Well, we won't go for too long. I can't believe I just looked. We're at an hour 49. I don't even know where I was going with that, but I was
box in the
saying
wall by the
slot limits. Okay,
so
that's
we were talking about so if you understand the what the bass should weigh, what the bluegill should weigh in a pond, then when you see it in public water, or here, let's look at it this way. I go out to I went out to with Philip yesterday and went fishing, and it was all 10-inch to 1.5-pound bass. I don't even know how many bites I got. I don't even really know how many fish I caught, 20 plus, just bite after bite after bite. And then he goes back today, and what do? They pull in one like 9 1/4. Well, that's what you got. You got bass stuck in a size class, and you got a couple bass in there that climb up, and then now they're feeding on other bass. And that's a quality fish grown not in a quality fishery.
Right.
That makes sense.
So you'll get guys who say, well, I caught this 9-pound bass out here. I'm like, yeah, but are you catching like 3 or 4 of them a season? No, you're catching one every 5 years. There's a big difference.
Yeah. And that's where I was going to go with like the slot limits. You should almost have like, I don't know what like rate is the hardest for bass to get to, but let's say like, I don't know, once they reach 6 inches, like their survival rate goes up 90%. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, but
like 16-inch bass. Like once you get it, that's another great example. Once you get a decent population of 16-inch bass in your lake, you don't have to harvest 8-inch bass anymore. They're gone.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So it's like you almost need like slot limits in these places of like, because what I was saying is like around here, if I would think
I gotta grab my plug.
Okay. All right. Well, my question isn't going to do anything because Randy, do you know anything about slot limits on bass and
yes, 100%. I was going to actually say kind of something similar. It's like the biggest thing, if you're obviously stating an obvious here, like if you want to grow a big bass kind of lake, you're never going to necessarily be able to do that unless you have like a giant lake that can support big bass.
And the thing,
because once you get 2 or 3 big ones, you can't can't do it without the size or the space.
Yeah. And everybody else, obviously stay within your slot limits. What Shan is talking about is cool, but you've got to remember he's doing a lot of private water stuff. Don't take this to heart, because one of the places I went to that absolutely pissed me off, and I think it was probably people trying to do the right thing, is I hope it was. But I went to a place where there was probably 20 dead bass in like little piles on the shore. It wasn't a kill. It was people catching bass and killing them.
Yeah.
The problem with that is you don't know what size to take out.
Right.
Killing 20 bass isn't going to do any good if you've still got a ton of crappie in there that are just going to eat everything else if you're trying to grow big bass. Just like stocking stuff, don't do that on your own. Leave that to the state. You get in a lot of trouble. If they catch you stocking stuff, you can get in deep trouble. So
and what I was also going to say, Debo, is as far as the limit is concerned, how long ago did they set that limit? Oh, you have to catch a 17-inch bass, but that was from 1974.
20 years ago. Yeah, what's in there still?
That does nothing today.
Right. Well, I know for around here, the state guys are running electrofishing, surveys, and they keep on top of them. They've got a small crew and a lot of water, but the regulations do change, and when you see changes in regulations, it comes from the fisheries guys. Now, not all.
That's the other thing too.
Like, politicians do pass those laws too, so sometimes you see that. But
but like Shan was saying,
straight regulations. If you see like, okay, you can't catch walleye this year, it probably didn't have a spawn last year.
Right. Or a big kill where you're just not getting the numbers. The thing too is there's only so many people to do that work. I know we had a bunch of people cut, when COVID and stuff come through. They didn't have the resources to keep a lot of that, and a lot of the places that used to be like immaculate just aren't anymore. So they've only got so many people that can do the electrofishing, can go out and manage the numbers. And so I don't know. Okay, listen, we're almost at 2 hours. We're each going to pick a this or that, or any question. Actually, we can each pick any question. Shan, I know your phone's dying here. So each of us pick one. We all three have to answer it, and then we're going to get out of here. So this is a freebie because I've already got it up here, and it's kind of a funny one. So everybody watching now, we still got 255 people watching, which I can't believe at 2 hours in. I love you guys. This is awesome. I always look forward to lives. Leave your questions now. It can be a this or that. It can be hopefully not a long-winded question, but leave your questions. Each of us are going to pick one. We're going to answer them and get out of here. So Rich's freebie. Mr. Debo will take me fishing first, or Mr. Dizzle will take me fishing first. Rich, I think you can probably go with both of us if we can get it arranged here in good old Iowa. Listen, we're not. This is the funny thing that I always chuckle at. We're not pros. We're not anybody special. We're just two guys that like to fish. So don't have your expectations high. Like I said, we skunked before today the last couple times.
Being said, go with Debo before me, because I can just tell you to throw a jig here, or
say unless it's jig fishing,
figure out something else somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay, so each of us are going to pick one. As soon as you guys see a question, call it out. I'll pin it, and we're each going to.
That Ocean State Angling 9:30. This or that. All your soft plastics come in a clamshell, or never catch a fish again on your favorite lure. I have a hate relationship with clamshells. They do nothing for me. If I get a clam, like any type of soft plastic in a clamshell, I throw it away instantly. I hate clamshells. But in this instance, I'm going with all my soft plastics come in a clamshell because I could just throw them away after the fact.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm on the other side of the spectrum. Like things like flukes, especially. I don't fish flukes nearly enough because I got tired of getting Zoom bags after you carry them around in your backpack and they get all like twisted and like in the shape of a C, then they're worthless. I actually like some baits and clamshells over not. So I'm a fan of some of them. Shan, how about you? Do you give a crap about clamshells or not?
I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
That's what I was waiting. So when you get the plastics.
So this right here. So this is a pack of Rage. This is a clamshell. This plasticky thing that comes inside of your plastic container.
Bag of plastic worms?
So inside of the bag of plastic worms is this little thing.
Yeah.
So I always do this. Dump all these out of here and throw the clamshell away.
And then while he does that,
the clamshell thing though, because I put hooks in there and I put it in my pocket.
See, Randy, I'm surprised you don't do that. Randy, when he wears cargo shorts, he has those things packed to the brim full of baits.
Oh, come on now.
All right, good one, Ocean State. Ocean State's had a few good ones. Shan, do you see any good ones you want to pick yet? I don't know if you can read the comments.
Something about a world record. Do you see that question?
What time? World record.
Oh, hold on.
Let me skip down. I'm behind. World record.
Tim Grant had a good one too at 9:30.
Oh, here we go. G-Fan. This or that. World record bass or back-to-back angler of the year. So this is interesting. This is touching on two separate things. So obviously, if you're back-to-back angler of the year, you have to be a tournament guy, right? So angler of the year, they place some points. I don't know what else all goes into that. I don't follow the BASS stuff a ton, but there's like a point system, and essentially you've placed in the top whatever number where you get points enough to be angler of the year. So would you rather catch a world record bass or be a guy that's looked at that's so consistent that can go to anywhere in the US 2 years in a row and be extremely effective and catch bass?
I'm going to go back-to-back angler of the year because world record bass can be broken. They're not going to ever take away my angler of the year awards.
That's an interesting look at it. My look was kind of the same as Randy I'm a decent fisherman. I don't hold a torch to any of those guys fishing tournaments because you have to go different places in the country, different times of the year. Of course they have electronics and stuff, take that stuff out. Even if you have electronics, you still have to know what cycle they're in, what baits, where to find them, where to locate them, how to stay on top of them. There's a bunch that goes into that. Like, I think there's a lot to be said for anglers that can go out and consistently catch fish. What about you, Shan? World record or
world record all
world
the way.
record?
World record.
Shan's all about them big fish.
Yeah.
Would you take that world record and put it in one of your clients' ponds and charge them for it?
I mean, I'd probably try to keep it alive for sure. Yeah.
Good on you.
World record bass.
Good on you. I like that.
I don't know, man. Maybe you just flip it back in and make like it's no big deal. You get that gangster status, you know?
Yeah. What was it? Shan equals a gangster?
Well, real quick, Shane, I want to ask, as it kind of relates to that, how bad is it when, you fish in tournaments or people fish in tournaments when it comes to, they take all these fish, if it's a 5-bag limit of all of the biggest fish that you catch, and then you go and you weigh them in, like how bad is that for the fishery itself?
Yeah, that's a good question and real subject for debate. It's going to depend on the fishery itself, and the needs of it. Some fishery, if it's light on bass, and heavily pressured, that could be very bad for it. Let's look at that coin. If it's heavy on bass, you need some harvest anyway, and they're killing fish with point or whatever estimates, you're going to find an extremely high mortality rate. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If you do it in February in tournaments, you're not. And that has to do with handling fish in the heat, not so much the relative dangerousness of the tournament. You know what I mean?
Right.
And again, there's so many variables there. To prove those things is very hard to do,
Sure.
But I will say this. I mean, I'm trying to come at it from this point of view. And I kind of, like you were talking about earlier, you get some guys usually on Facebook, I try to be as patient with them as I can, but it can be challenging, man. And you can't just like cookie cut this stuff and like read 3 posts and now everything that's going on.
Right.
It's just not how that works.
Shan, you have to accept that. Anytime when you said you want to start your YouTube channel and be an influencer, expect to see the internet. What's the word?
Oh yeah, man, they swell up pretty bad on you sometimes.
The internet DEBO'S.
You know what I've noticed?
Shut up, Randy.
Is like the stuff that gets that kind of engagement gets shared more and actually gets you more followers. So if you just play it cool and just answer the questions professionally, don't get really too wordy or mouthy, or don't use any language or anything like that, and just be factual, you get a lot of followers from those trolls.
Yeah.
So I just try to use it that way.
Chef Koopa, this is an easy one. I know this was for Dizzle, but War Eagles go out of production or supply chain kills biscuits and gravy. If any supply chain kills biscuits and gravy, I'm revolting. I love my B's and G's.
So this is a twofold. I'm not going to run out of War Eagles, and biscuits and gravy are way too easy to make. So
that's true. Shan, hopefully, have you ever had biscuits and gravy?
No, I don't even know what that is. Is that an American food?
Well, so funny enough, Jim, Tackle Junkie, that is a good friend of the channel, he's actually never partaken in the eating of biscuits and gravy. And we give him crap because he's like, dude, I've never had it. Like, it's just not, it doesn't look that good to me. I'm like, we can't be friends. It's my favorite breakfast. Okay, so this is the one we're ending on. I see people are dropping out. We're passing the 2-hour mark. Okay, windy or cold fishing scene. This is how I've changed on wind. Wind usually always helps fishing. Now, if you're in a boat and how windy it is, it's usually a tough deal. But from the bank, I've embraced wind so much, and it's helped me fishing from the bank specifically. Finding the wind-blown bank, casting into the wind, it kind of camouflages your lure. fish, you know, generally when you have wind, a lot of times you're going to have cloud cover. Fish are moving more. So for sure, I will always take wind unless I'm in a boat where it makes it unmanageable. But that's my answer. Wind, always.
Wind, I agree.
I've had more luck in the cold than I have in the wind.
I knew you'd say it just to be different.
No,
all right,
I'm just
Feeshin
saying
friends.
it, to be honest.
Well, we're going to get some biscuits and gravy, put them in clamshells, and give them to Randy out on his cold fishing adventure. All right, listen, everyone, we're out of here. I'll leave Shan's stuff. Shan was a last-minute ad, so I don't have any of his stuff below. I try to always do that for everyone, put their stuff below. I'll leave his YouTube, his Instagram. Super good guy. Shan, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Debo. Thanks, Randy. See you, man.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
All right, everyone, we're out of here. We'll see you again next Saturday night. Love y'all. Thank y'all for watching, and until